All right, welcome back to the show. Our guest today is a motivational speaker. He's an author, a podcaster. He's a businessman and a coach that helps to change the game in mindset and success. That's what we all want every day. His book, which we're going to talk a little bit about the background, How to Be a Success Champion, Business Strategy for Badasses, is a story of his own life that's inspired thousands to get out of their own way of thinking and actually do something, like actually take action. He launched his career from being a corporal in the U.S. Marine Services. Thank you for your services. Spent over 2 decades mastering sales and marketing and becoming a founder and CEO of the Success Champions family of companies, which include Success Champion Consulting, Growth Mode Podcast, Success Champion Magazine, the Badass Business Summit, and Success Champion Networking. I thought you might have a company about food or something here. We're gonna keep going. So welcome to the show, Mr. Donnie Boivin. Donnie, how are you, man?
Jeremy, it's awesome to be here, brother. Thank you for that. And funny thing enough, we just launched a 6th company called Events with an Edge. So that just literally launched yesterday. Things happen when you get pissed off at traditional marketing and social media outlets.
Yeah.
Things won't work their way. You create your own path. So
I like it, man. I like it. All right. So thanks for being on here. I love talking about human behavior and how that applies to really success, especially success in sales and persuasion. So I'm excited to have you on with this. First and foremost, I want to do this. Let's dive into your story and maybe give our listeners a little bit of feel of your background. Sure. And how you arrived at this point where you're really this authority on success and really getting out of your own way. How did it all start out? Where did you learn all these skills?
Sure. So after the Marine Corps, I found straight commission sales and I spent the next 20 plus years in that game. I've actually never had a full-on salary and I came up through the hard way. My first real sales job was door to door. And I sold that all the way up through selling franchises, commercial.
All right. I got to know your first job door to door. What did you actually sell?
Heating and air conditioning. So I came out of the Marine Corps, went to work for my best friend and his old man. I was the grunt. I started off as the guy climbing up in the attic, installing furnaces and under houses. It was horrible. And I was getting ready to quit. And the owner of the company, Jerry, looked at me and said, before you quit, try something for me. He goes, I want you to try sales. And I was like, what's sales? I had no clue. Right. He goes, I'm going to hand you a stack of pamphlets. You're going to go knock on doors. If somebody lets us come look at their system, we'll pay you if they do. And I said, I don't want to climb in attics and under houses. He said, nope. I said, count me in. And then I learned to sell door to door on a funny just happenstance.
Yeah.
It was over 100-degree day here in Texas. I walked up on a house. Lady answered. I said, ma'am, yes, I'm a door-to-door sales guy, but I forgot to stock my cooler with enough water. Can I just get a glass of water? She goes, oh my God, yes, hold on. Invited me into her house. Next thing I know, I was sitting down and was talking to her about heating and air conditioning.
Yeah.
So after that interaction, I had to pee a lot because every house I went to, I'm like, can I get a glass of water?
Oh my gosh.
And that's how I learned to sell door to door, was by getting people to bring me a glass of water.
I like it. So you got out of door to door sales and you transitioned into what?
I went up to St. Louis and got part of a franchise sales team. So we sold $250,000 franchise to pharmacy students coming fresh out of pharmacy school. So we sold them pharmacies. So we had over 1,400 pharmacies across the U.S. and some internationally. Then we're bought out by Cardinal Health. I got corporate downsized in the mix of it all through the buyout.
Okay.
Came home, bartended for a couple of years, was hired out from behind a bar to sell commercial printing, and grew a multi-million-dollar division for that commercial printer. Survived the 08, the 09 downturn. Yeah. And 2011 was recruited by a sales training company to come in and sell.
Oh, what company was that?
Sandler Training.
Sandler Institute. Yeah.
Yep. And I, sold for them for a couple years, then became a partner in the firm and a sales trainer. I had no real desire to be a sales trainer. We just sold so much that they needed extra people up training. So I didn't make money unless I sold still. So kept myself in the streets. And I think anybody who's training sales should be in the streets selling anyways. Turned 40 and had an epiphany that I'd lived my entire life making everybody else wealthy. And I started looking at the numbers of what I sold over the years and the hundreds of millions I've actually sold and what the company's got to keep versus what I got to keep.
Sure.
I jumped out and launched my own company. So
you got out of your comfort zone to go to the next level. Let's talk about this book here. Walk us through your book, How to Be a Success Champion, Business Strategies for Badasses. Who did you write that book for and why did you actually write it?
I wrote it for the people that were like me, that were leaving corporate America America, getting into the sales game and trying to figure out this whole sales process, thought and idea. It's funny, it's who's picked it up and read it. I've had a couple of major corporations reach out to me and use it with their sales teams, but I really wrote it for the small business owner that didn't know how to actually sell. I mean, a lot of people do what I did. Let me leave corporate America. Let me start something, figure something out. Now, oh crap, I've got to sell something. I use a lot of my story growing up in the sales game from networking and the likes, and talk about how do you actually have a real sales conversation without being a sleazeball.
Well, let's transition into that. That's the next question I was going to ask. You talk a lot about in your interviews. I was watching some videos of you and some podcasts. You talk about how sales is a conversation. I couldn't agree more. It's not a transaction. Tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that.
Growing up in the sales game, I mean, I grew up on all the gurus. I mean, you talk about the Grant Cardones, the Brian Tracys, the Zig Ziglars, all these guys, and all their backgrounds come from transactional sales.
Well, and you're talking about selling in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, right? The consumers were quite a bit different than they are today, right?
You're right. Those sales that they sold, it was one and done, right? They didn't care if they came back. I mean, some of the tactics, even though they're still greaseball, will work. They just only work in a transactional sale. And I think we're just in a world where we care more about lifetime value of a client, relationships, and the likes. And if you use any of these old school strategies, you're going to get your teeth kicked in.
Well, I think even in transactional selling, if you use those strategies, you're going to get your teeth kicked in. We train a lot of insurance companies that sell that way, and they get crushed until we have to come in and like redo everything in their sales structure. I agree with you, but a consumer has become, let's say, more sophisticated, more skeptical, more cautious because of the power of the internet, especially social media. You know, they'll no longer be pressured or pushed by pushy salespeople because they know they have many choices to choose the exact product or service that we sell, right?
Well, absolutely. And I think that we've become human beings. I think that the more people put the human aspect into sales, the better off they are, because I don't believe in closing. There's never a close. There's a start of a relationship. Now, I love closure. I don't want to chase somebody, right? Let's get a next step. Let's get a real conversation. Let's put our cards on the table. But people are always taught, you know, browbeat them, get that deal done. You know, your money's in their pocket. Go get it. All that crap is BS. Nobody cares about it, man.
Well, you got to get rid of the commission breath, right? So we talk a lot about commitment, right? So we want them to commit to take the next step that leads to them changing their situation. They can't change their situation unless they purchase your product or service, right? So it's more about problem finding and problem solving, whereas you're talking about stay away from the product pushing.
I'm going to challenge a little bit on the problem side of things and the pain side of things, because even that's getting old school anymore. I mean, if you start looking at a lot of the methodology, find the pain points, find the problems. In this day and age, most times what everybody's selling is the same company right next door is selling. And what you've got to do is, I'm not paying somebody to go in and find pains and problems. I'm paying somebody to go in and develop a relationship.
Well, it's two things. You have to find out their problem, because most prospects don't understand they even have a problem when you first talk about them. You have to get them to see what their future is going to look like, or their what we call their objective state, once the problems are actually solved. Because if we can't help them find any problems in their own mind, it'd be impossible for them to ever feel any urgency to want to change something that they don't know is wrong.
I agree, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper on that. I think most times people buy from people they trust. I don't like that old school phrase of know, like, and trust. It comes down to trust.
I agree with you 100%.
And if I sit across from somebody and I focus on trying to get them to uncover a problem, then I'm always going to start off from a negative context. And I don't want to come from a negative state. I don't want to come from a negative mindset. What I want to do is I want to transform the way they're thinking. And I want to understand.
That's what selling is. It's all about change, right?
Absolutely. And I want them to understand that there's most likely a more unique, a better way of approaching it, because the hardest thing is to do in a sales is take business from another vendor, because they got established relationships and the like. You know, you can't go in and you know that you can't browbeat the other vendor. You can't, you know.
Sure, yeah, because they're going to trust you less if you do, right?
For sure.
Human brains are wired to do that in this day and age, for sure.
So what you have to do is you got to go in, plant your feet, and have some real conversations. And it starts off a lot of times of, hey, I'm sure you love exactly who you're working with. I'm sure they're doing everything that you thought would be of value to your company. Is there anything left on the table? And what I find oftentimes is going in for a smaller portion of a lot of the deals will open the doors for a lot bigger portion down the line. Those just upfront, real, authentic conversations. Because I think most people go into a sales call trying to be one person, when if they just went in being themselves and got to know people, spent time diving in their world, sales gets really simple pretty easy.
Well, and I think it has to be not only a real conversation, but it has to be a skilled conversation. So many salespeople are taught that you should go in Ask them how the weather is, who won the game last night. Oh, you see a picture of their daughter getting married. My daughter got married. No prospect gives an SHIT about that stuff because they know you're not authentic. They know you're not really wanting to know how the weather is in Dallas or Seattle where you're talking to them. Like, nobody cares about that. Actually, the right questions in a conversation actually build that trust. You're exactly right. People do not buy because they like you. They buy because they trust you
100%.
that you're going to get them the results that they're wanting. That's an old myth from actually How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is a great book, but it was written in 1936.
For sure.
And things have completely shifted. Consumer buying behaviors are way different than they were in 1936. I hate to tell everybody that. So people buy based on who they feel is going to get them the best result. You might like grandma, right? But you're not necessarily going to buy from grandma if you don't feel like grandma's going to get you the results that you want. You're going to buy from the professional who you feel is going to get you the best result. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it, the greatest skill any salesperson can have is that ability to ask the right questions. It starts as soon as you walk through the door. It's the generic, the inauthentic, side of it that screws everything up. You've got to do your homework a little bit before you walk in as well. So you know what kind of conversation you're having. But even if you start off the meeting with a very simple, how does this move forward? Do we dive in, go heavy details? Do you want to know about my company? And let them tell you how they want to proceed. You'll be amazed.
You're seeking permission on where they want to go with the conversation. And that helps you really figure out in your own mind kind of where to steer the conversation rather than you just guessing what you hope is going to work out. You don't want to, I call that hopium. It's a drug that so many salespeople take where they just
hope hopium.
Hope and pray that something they're going to say is going to trigger that prospect to want to engage and want to buy from them. Let's talk a little bit about podcasting. I was watching you in an interview a while back, and you were saying that podcasting saved your business. Tell us the story behind that.
So when I launched Success Champion, I was under an international non-compete. So I couldn't talk about sales, business development, sales training, and the like. I came out as a success coach. And to this day, I don't know what the hell a success coach is.
Right.
But I was trying to do anything I could to get a business off the ground. I was failing miserably. I found podcasting in May of 2018, and I tell everybody it saved my business for a couple of reasons. One, I was getting the pleasure of interviewing some of the biggest names in the world on my podcast, but I realized I couldn't have a crap show. So I was literally bringing in these names. I had to have the right operations. I had to learn to outsource, accounting. It forced me to get out in front of the company versus spending all my time behind the company.
Yeah.
It was a combination of my podcast hitting number 22 in the world, the non-compete coming up, and I could go back and talk about sales, business development, and actually proactively help companies go a lot bigger. That really saved my ass when it came to growing and scaling a business.
Some people might say that, hey, there's this trial around my throat. I've got this non-compete. I better just wait until the non-compete's over. But instead of just waiting around, just waiting, you took the bull by its horns and kind of went a different direction, but around about the same direction, but a different way to really start that off. I like that. Let's talk about, in today's world, why is it so important for really anyone to have the ability to be able to sell and persuade if they want to be competitive?
Well, it comes from a couple of different perspectives. If you're a business owner and you're like, man, if I could just hire a group of salespeople that could go sell this for me, life would be easier. My response is, can you sell first? Because if you can't sell, you'll never have a successful sales team. But two, and you know this, Jeremy, everything we do in life is a sales conversation. It's the ability to get to specifics. It's the ability to get to real conversations. And everything happens because of a sales conversation. And, when you learn the ability to get to closure, and for me, closure is, we get a yes, we get a no, we get a next step. If you can get to closure in every conversation, you learn to how to have more in-depth, bigger, more phenomenal, more badass conversations because you actually are getting more meat on the bone. And I think most people, because we grew up in a realm of surface level, let's talk on our phones, let's talk in social media.
Everything be surface level.
Yep. And sales is so much deeper than that.
Well, if you want to be good,
For sure. If you stay up here on the surface, you might as well go be a telemarketer or something.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Surface level selling. I think a lot of sales training companies, because I'm familiar with Sandler Institute where you came from and the Submarine and several different companies that, Sandler's been around since 1971, I believe, right? So a lot of these companies, a lot of it's good, but a lot of it's surface level selling. You're taught how to ask some surface level questions. And I would say Sandler's even better than most that I've seen. Spin selling, right? Great book. surface level selling, right? You're taught to ask some surface level questions about the needs of the prospect.
Now, I would challenge that challenger sale goes deeper. I do like the thought process, but not many people can pull off the challenger sale.
Well, it's hard to duplicate that with most salespeople reading different personalities. I would say it's almost impossible for most salespeople. I think you could find one or two in an organization of a couple hundred that can pull that off. But I think as far as getting a whole team to duplicate that, I think very
impossible.
Yep. I agree. It's hard to read personality types, especially if you're just a normal lay salesperson that's clocking in at 8 in the morning, clocking out at 5 in the afternoon. They're just not going to put that.
I mean, you got to legitimately connect with the person you're talking to. And, you know, what people don't understand is we as people get hung up and we sell the way we buy. And what we have to flip the script is we actually have to sell the people the way they buy.
Sure.
Right. And it's understanding their world and diving in. And if you can't walk away and debrief your own sales call going, how would this person actually have said yes to me? Then you kept it service the entire time.
Well, yeah. I mean, consultative questions like these bug me. Like, oh, you know, John, what's some of your problems that's keeping you awake?
Keeping you up at night. I was waiting for that.
You gotta stop those surface level questions. Like, you know, those books were written in the 1980s. We're in 2021. Like, people have heard that, done that, been there. Your prospects hear that type of stuff every day. And when you say it, I hate to tell you this, it automatically triggers sales resistance. They automatically commoditize you. All right. They put you over here in this group of all these other salespeople cold calling them all day. And then you're just like running, chasing, begging them, trying to, you know, negotiate your price way down to even hope and pray the sale. And you're just putting yourself, like you're just smashing yourself on the wall opening of that call.
Absolutely. The first sure way of being treated like a salesperson is acting like a damn salesperson. You know?
Your job as a sales professional is to come across as not a sales professional.
Correct.
Like, you do not want to be labeled a salesperson. Otherwise, they just commoditize you in their mind. The worst words you could hear from a prospect is, you're a great salesperson.
Yes. You know, you're in trouble.
Anything.
You know, to help people wrap their head around is both people should walk away from that sales conversation going, holy hell, this was an amazing conversation. We both got a ton of value out of it. I hate the phrase win-win because it's so overused, but that's the idea behind it is both parties got to feel like that they contributed, they got value out of the conversation. It cannot be this transactional one side, let me tell you why we're awesome crap.
Nobody cares,
right?
Nobody cares about your product or service. People do not buy your product or service. They buy the results of what that product and service is going to do for them. So you're not selling the thing, you're selling the results of that thing, right? That's what you're selling, right? You're not selling the thing, you're selling the results of what that thing's going to do for them. So each person, each salesperson, or if you're a company owner listening right now, your salespeople should walk away with this knowledge. They understand what that prospect's current situation is, their current state. They understand where that prospect wants to be. I call that their objective state. And they also understand what the gaps are between where they are compared to where they want to be. Your salespeople have to understand all three of those things: current state, objective state, and the gap in between. If your salespeople understand those things, who else is understanding it? The prospect, more importantly. And when the salesperson is able to get the prospect to understand all this, that's when there's urgency for them to take action and do something about solving this now, rather than kicking the can down the road.
For sure. And that's why, you know, sales managers, business owners, the greatest thing you can do for your salespeople is let them go get their teeth kicked in. Right? Let them go out, have some sales conversations. And then managers, as owners, you better have an amazing ability of then debriefing the hell out of these sales calls. You know, and ask them, walk them through, and you better be able to coach them through specifically how they could have said it better, how they could have said it more objectively, how could they have been more real and authentic, and so they can learn. Because you only learn by going and hearing something, like everything you just walked through. You only learn that by going and getting punched in the face, by trying it, completely foobarring it up, and going back, okay, that sucked, let's do it again. Each time you evolve a little bit more, you get punched in the face again, and you go. But you got to have an encouraging environment from a sales standpoint. So going back to, this isn't the old school sales, get your people out of the sales pits, get your people out of this grind of the sales world, and turn it into a family adventure inside your companies where they actually, salespeople love coming and working for you because they're getting encouragement, getting training from guys like Jeremy and his team, and they're doing amazing things.
If your salespeople come to work and they view themselves as like, look, when I'm on my calls, I'm trying to help this prospect find out what their real problems are, because most prospects don't even know what their problems are. You first start talking to them, right? Or they don't understand how bad their problems are. Or maybe they don't even understand the consequences of what will happen if they don't do anything. And they don't really know where they want to be. They don't see what's going to happen once their problems are all solved. They don't see what, future state, some people call it their objective state. So when your salespeople come to work thinking like, I'm not necessarily calling, I'm detached from the expectations of making the sale. I'm instead trying to focus on whether there's a sale to be made in the first place. And when they come across that way to the prospect does what? Becomes more open, right? When you're open to them, that you might not even be able to help them, they become open to you, right? Because they feel that you're not biased. If you come in like aggressive, needy, like attached to the sale, what does the prospect do? Walls come out, resistance comes out very quickly. Let's talk about the pandemic though. So how has selling changed in your mind because of the COVID-19 stuff? And now that we're coming out of it, I think we are, everybody. It depends on what you believe. How do you see it changing even further?
Only thing that I did think the pandemic did, I think it was actually a blessing for the sales world. And the reason being is it made everybody human. It made everybody on the same playing field. I mean, when you got CEOs of major corporations in t-shirts and shorts sitting on the Zoom call, it makes it a lot easier for salespeople who have this mindset that the people they're selling to should be on this pedestal and they're above them or whatever else. Right. I think it leveled the playing field. For our company as a whole, we created 2 companies during the pandemic to help people stay in the game. But I think the more you humanize sales as a whole, the better off we're going to be as we continue to build everything out. So I think it was an actual blessing on sales.
I totally agree. I think it eliminated a lot of wasted time because
Agreed.
Let's say if you're an insurance company and your beliefs was like, we've got to be in the homes of people, talking to them about their policies. There's no way we could sell on the phone or Zoom. Well, we train companies when we made that switch and we're just like, well, just get on Zoom with them. You're going to see 3 times as many people. You're going to make more sales because you're just able to see more people. Like when your sales guy's driving 30 miles one way and then they don't show up and then he drives 20 miles this way, like you're wasting half the day when you could just stack appointments back to back to back to back on Zoom. And you're just seeing more people. I think it definitely opened that up. Instead of, putting your sales team on a plane to fly from LA to New York for a demo, well, you just do that demo from your offices in LA on Zoom. There's no difference there.
Absolutely.
100%. All right. What are your thoughts on closing? Pressure versus commitment or closure? I like that.
For me, it's all closure. I don't believe in closure. I mean, I can't say I never had. Growing up as a young buck and listening to all the old school sales guys, I tried to close as hard as the next guy, right? But in this day and age, if you try and close, you're going to lose.
Especially if you're in a complex selling environment.
Absolutely. And closing is a transactional aspect. And I think and you already said it, you've got to maintain complete detachment from the outcome. My biggest philosophy when it comes to closure is I actually go to try and teach everybody to disqualify everybody you're sitting across from. If you go in from a mindset of let me disqualify you, good things actually happen. You do not try and force yourself upon them and can have some real conversations. So everything somebody needs to be able to have and do to say yes to you. Yeah. So ask the questions that help you understand, are they a good fit for your company? Mm-hmm. And I think if you go in from that perspective of are they a good fit for your company, helps you stay detached, helps you have real conversations, and it'll let you dive in a lot further. And then just don't walk away from any meeting without some sort of closure.
Well, 100%. So many salespeople go into a meeting, especially in complex sound environment, and they're just like, well, I hope they get back to me, or they say you'll get back to me in a couple weeks. I hope they call. And then it's just like this hopium game. No, stop the madness, right? You have to get them to commit to take the next step. So if it's not, what we call asking commitment questions to get them to purchase, in a complex selling environment, it's just really asking commitment questions for them to take smaller commitments that lead to the ultimate commitment of purchasing your product or service to solve their problems. So if, let's say, you're in a more complex sound environment, let's say you sell medical device equipment or whatever, and just throwing stuff out, your next step might be to come in and book a second step call with one of their doctors to go over your operating procedure with this new product, or that's the second step. So it's a commitment that they do something.
Yes.
I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not on both your calendars, you have nothing.
Exactly, 100% of the time.
That's what we tell everybody. What I've found is to get the next step is so simple. It just sound like, hey, Jeremy, should we have an additional conversation, dive in, maybe take you through a demo, do something in our world?
Does it make sense? Yeah.
Yep. Does it make sense to do this? Or I'll start off, and I love a more authoritative position, which is, hey, Jeremy, let's do this. Let's schedule a second meeting. I love the phrase, let's do this, because it's non-threatening. It takes a little bit more command of the conversation. It allows you to guide it to where you need to go. Let's schedule a second meeting, unless you've already decided this isn't going to be a fit and we shouldn't continue forward with the conversations. And that giving them that out, giving them that permission to say okay, keeps the trust level up, keeps you into a real conversation.
You're there for them rather than yourself. Yeah, I like that 100%. Does it make sense for us to have another call to go over XYZ to see if this would help your company or whatever, or the backwards way?
And for the people listening, what I want you to hear is don't use our words, don't use our mannerisms. Take these phrases, put them into your own vernacular. I mean, the way I look at it is Jeremy and I will walk you through the sheet music, but you got to play your own damn song with this stuff because you can't sound like us. I know once upon a time I went through some sales trainings from some guys up in New York and New Jersey, and I came back to Texas and all of a sudden I'm talking like a guy from New York and New Jersey. It did not go well at all.
The accents for sure. Now, having the right tonality,
absolutely.
Pausing, those type of things are important. You want to slow down, kind of like me and Donnie did. We're kind of just slow, relaxed, conversational. You don't want to be high-pitched, excited, enthusiastic. Like, you want to be excited about the sale, but keep that to yourself. It's so important to keep your excitement internally rather than externally showing it to people. People don't buy from you just because you're excited about your damn product or service. Nobody cares.
Right. Having passion does sell, but I agree. Keep it on the inside.
Keep it on
because if you don't like what you sell, you're not going to be able to sell in the first place.
Of course, you got to be excited about what you're selling. Keep it on your inside because imagine yourself, you go in to buy a car and the salesperson comes out, really excited that you're there. What do you typically do? Whoa. It's like, I'm just looking,
real situation on my farm, we went to look for a new barn. And so we went to this big place where you buy all these barns and stuff and they'll come and build it on your property. And I walked in and we're ready to spend a significant amount of money. And we're out there looking at these barns and nobody ever came out to say hi. Yeah. And I walk in and an obese gentleman sitting behind the desk. And I said, hey, you mind showing us a couple barns? He goes, oh, here's a couple of pamphlets.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm out. See ya. And we went down just a couple miles down the road and we spent a significant amount of money on a new barn for our farm. So if you don't like what you sell, we'll all see it. We'll all feel it. We'll all understand it. So, and unfortunately, I think, and this happens more with your more seasoned sales guys, they get into sales professions and career. It's their last ditch hope because they've never learned to sell. I hate it when somebody looks at me and says, I've got 25 years of sales experience. No, you got year one repeated 25 times, right?
It's like a Heisman Trophy winner, right? It's
right, exactly.
Back in high school, I did this. Well, like nobody cares that you were the MVP your senior in high school.
Absolutely.
It's like, what the hell are you doing right now this week?
Absolutely.
Okay, so last question I have for you. What's one of the main reasons why so many buying decisions stall in the marketplace?
One, people aren't authentically asking for the sale. Two, they screwed up somewhere in the process. So more often than not, the person becomes a salesperson along the way. I don't believe in overcoming objections because if you're overcoming objections, you lost authenticity somewhere in the sales process to begin with.
I'd rather you get to the objections from even happening.
Absolutely. Right? I mean, if you're not having an authentic conversation, you're going to get, we're not going to do this now. It's cost too much. You're going to hear all this crap because you lost being a person somewhere. And overcoming objections, that's old school world. So I think it's
objections from happening. And if you do get some type of what we call concern, what questions can we ask to help them overcome that concern so they can move forward and get their problem solved and get where they want to be?
Well, and oftentimes whatever objection they brought up is not really what the problem is. So if somebody says, hey, appreciate this, it's too expensive or whatever they may say, that's never the real problem. Yeah. Right? It's never the real issue.
Too expensive. They just don't believe that you can get them where they want to be. Because if you're selling, let's say, $100,000 solution, but they in their mind think, wow, that $100,000 solution is going to make us an extra $10 million in profit this year. Yes. What are they going to do to go out and find that money?
Absolutely.
They're going to go beg, borrow, and steal to get that money.
Well, and I find, if you get to that point and they've brought that up, man, fall on the sword. Immediately look at him, go, man, thank you. I really appreciate you telling me that. And my apologies. Because somewhere along the way, I became a sales guy and lost a real conversation. Where did I screw up? And you'll be amazed that if you're honest and you say, where did I screw up? They're going to laugh because nobody ever talks to them that way. Nobody ever listens them from that side of the table. They're going to laugh and look right back at you and go, oh, you didn't screw up. But here's what happened.
Tell you the real concern.
Absolutely.
I like it. Donnie, I can't thank you enough for being on the show with us today. Any final thoughts or advice for our listeners?
Guys, if you're listening to this show and you got any value out of it, do me a favor and do Jeremy a favor and share this out with one other person. Because one thing that I find is that as a podcaster, one of the greatest things you can do is tell somebody else about Jeremy's show because it helps him get his message, his brand, and everything out to everybody. So share this out with everybody and do me a favor and look up the
Where can our listeners learn more about you and your training?
For sure. So check out the Badass Business Summit, badassbusinesssummit.com. But if you're looking for more information from us, if you'll text the word success to 817-318-6030, that's the word success to 817-318-6030. We'll send you over all my contact information, some free training and things that you can apply to your company right now, and some more information on all of our podcasts and everything. So
I like it. We'll put that link here for all of our listeners as well. Donnie, thanks for being on the show. Talk to you soon. Stay safe out there. Appreciate you.
My honor.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch right over here, Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're gonna help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.